Welcome back, everyone. Last week was the 2025 Southern Baptist Convention that met in Dallas. And again, my wife and I went to it, and I just want to share with you some of the highlights. Of course, a lot of things happened. I can't share everything, but there are some major things that I was really interested in, and I thought I would like to share it with you today on this video. But first of all, before we get into this, I want to remind you of how the SBC actually works. There's a lot of misunderstanding about the Southern Baptist Convention, some haters of it, and for some people, maybe there's some good reasons in that, but I think a lot of it is misunderstanding, seeing it as a denomination that runs the churches. The Southern Baptist Convention does not have any authority whatsoever over the churches. The churches are autonomous, just like independent Baptist churches, but they cooperate together to support missions and other kinds of works. And so that's basically what it is. And last year after convention, I made a video kind of explaining a little bit about it. So if I think about it, maybe I'll put a link to that in the notes of this video if you want to see it. But I want to talk about this convention this year. I want to start with some general thoughts. The president of the Southern Baptist Convention this year is Clint Presley. And I thought he did a real good job running the meeting. Of course, the parliamentarians run a lot of the business part of it. They tell him exactly what to say, but he did a good job of it. You know, I think he looked professional, just like he should be in that position. But one of the things that he said, it was interesting when he got up and he said, I learned a lot of things about the Southern Baptist Convention in the last year. And one of them is that Southern Baptists are a whole lot more fun in person than they are online because we see everything and everyone's fighting online. So that's not what I want this video to be about. I'm going to share some things that I did like and some things that I didn't like about what's going on in the Southern Baptist Convention. But another thing that Clint Presley noted was that one of the things that is very important about the Southern Baptist Convention is its belief in inerrancy of the Bible. This battle was fought decades ago, and Southern Baptists believe in the Bible. Of course, you could always in any organization find some that don't, but basically that's what it is. The arguments that are had within the Southern Baptist Convention are based on how to interpret things in the Bible, usually. And so we're not having a question of, do we really believe the Bible? Is the Bible really God's word? That's not the issue. The issue is how do we interpret some things and how do some of the things work out in our practice? And again, the convention cannot tell churches what to do. The most they can do is say, you are no longer acting within what we think goes along with the Bible. So therefore, we're going to disfellowship you. You don't send your money anymore. You're not going to be part of this thing. So they can't come in and tell us anything to do in our churches, nothing at all. They have no control over us. We just band together for certain work and support it financially. So another thing Clint Presley said that I really liked is that he talked about how we as Southern Baptists recognize the difference between men and women. This is so important in our society today because, I mean, goodness, it seems even so crazy to say it, but people don't know the difference. How can that even be? I think they actually do. It's just fitting in with society and virtue signaling and all that garbage. But this is what he said. This is a quote. He talked about the, quote, irrationality of the transgender movement, end quote. Which is a good statement for the president of the SBC to make a statement. This is what we believe. The transgender movement is irrational because there's no other way around it. All right, so let's talk about some things. I want to start, first of all, with some good things. There were three major things that I wanted to see happen that didn't. So those are kind of negatives. But one of the good things, and it's kind of weird because the Southern Baptists do these resolutions every year. And resolutions are not binding in any way. They're just kind of a snapshot of where we are. Some are worthless, but some just show the world what we're thinking. And a few of them this year were very, very good. I was really happy to see them show up. So I just want to show you this is a document. You can find this stuff online, by the way. Proposed resolutions, and all of them passed. First of all, this is every year on appreciation for the city that's hosting it. Nothing really to talk about. It was a centennial of the cooperative program. The cooperative program is the money that comes into the Southern Baptist Convention that is then used for the expenses, mainly for missions, for the seminaries and things like that. So it's just, we're celebrating the 100-year anniversary of it. Okay. One of the things is this one here on harmful and predatory nature of sports betting. So this is a resolution talking about how dangerous it is to be betting on sports because this is becoming a bigger thing. And, the Bible talks about getting rich quick. And there were some questions about this, but in the end, it did pass. The next one, this one was a good one on banning pornography. Obviously, this doesn't ban pornography. It's just saying we as Southern Baptists agree that pornography should be banned. It's wrong. It's a sin. It's detrimental to society. So, you got all the resolve this and that, and that everything, the whereases and the resolve, so we standing against pornography, good stand to make, obviously. And then this is a really good one on restoring moral clarity through God's design for gender, marriage, and family. We need to have that. It's just a way to tell the world who's watching, because people are watching. It's the world's largest Protestant so-called denomination. If you can even call it a denomination, it's not really a denomination, if you really understand how it works. Restoring moral clarity. So this is a statement to the world that there is moral clarity on gender, marriage, and the family. This is not a questionable thing. This is the way that God made everything. So you can read through all that if you want. I am not going to do that to you on this video. The next one here, standing against moral evils and medical danger of chemical abortion pills. Chemical abortion is, according to my understanding, the biggest way that children are aborted today. So we're standing against that. Look, you can abort a child by going in there and just tearing it to shreds, or by chemically and then suctioning the baby out. So we stand against that. We stand against abortion. And the next one is advocating for international religious freedom. That's just like what it sounds. We believe everyone should have religious freedom. And then celebrating the centennial of the Baptist faith and message, which is the doctrinal statement of the Southern Baptist Convention. It was updated in 2000, but originally it came out in 1925. So celebrating that. And that was it as far as the resolutions go. So pretty simple. Nothing really out of the ordinary, crazy this year. I thought they were basically pretty good. But then we get into the business. Now, if you understand the Southern Baptist Convention, technically it only exists for 2 days a year, and that is during the convention. It was last Tuesday and Wednesday. And it's basically a business meeting. Now, there are reports and there's preaching and singing and all kinds of stuff, but it's a business meeting. And there are a few times where you can go and you can put out motions on the floor. If you get there quick enough to the microphone, you get recognized, and it goes in order of who was first to the microphone and hit the button. You can make a motion, and then what happens is there is a committee on the order of business that takes all the motions and decides what to do with them. Do we want to rule them out of order, as in this is not something that we can deal with, or do we refer them to a committee to look at them further over the next year, or do we bring them to the floor right away? Now, you can say that's fair, that's not fair, whatever. I mean, you're talking about, there were about 10,500 messengers, those are the official people there, plus 4,000 or 5,000 visitors. And so this is a lot of people. Everybody can't get up and say something. So it's just kind of the way that it's set up to work in the Southern Baptist Convention. But what happens if you make a motion and it gets referred somewhere else, you can actually go to the floor later at the right time and say, if the body will vote for this right now, we're going to vote to bring this out and actually consider it now. And that did happen a couple times. We'll talk about that in a minute. So there were all kinds of motions. I think I saw maybe 28, I don't know, but there were 3 major issues that I knew were going to come up at this convention, and they happened to be in motions 1, 2, and 3. The first 3 motions made were dealing with these hot topics. And so let's look at them. The first one is the annual discussion over whether a female can be any kind of a pastor. This, unfortunately, is a big deal in the Southern Baptist Convention. Now, the Baptist faith and message, the doctrinal statement, does point out that the office of pastor is reserved for men, which is how it should be, because that's biblical. But there are people who are they're ordaining women. And some churches have recently been kicked out because of that. But there's still a lot that have them. But there's a question of, at what point is a woman a pastor? We call her a pastor, but she's really a children's ministry director. It's just a bunch of gobbledygook, in my opinion. If she's not a pastor, don't call her a pastor. I think it's people trying to push the line too far. So this actually came up twice, but the one that we dealt with in this convention was a motion that was made by a pastor named Juan Sanchez. He wanted to update the Constitution, not just the Baptist faith and message, but the Constitution, to state that a pastor is only a man. Now, it's disappointing to me because in his discussion later when this came up, he talked about how they have female deacons. Well, that's unbiblical for the same reason that have a woman pastor is unbiblical. But that is a side point at this point. And so he brought this up. Hey, let's put in the Constitution where only a man can be a pastor. So the Committee on the Order of Business wanted to refer this to another committee. I don't remember. It's probably the Executive Committee. So that means it wouldn't be voted on. It'd be referred. They talk about it for a year. And if they wanted to bring it up, they would. Well, when it came out in the afternoon that they were going to refer this to the committee, Juan Sanchez got up and he made a motion to bring it to the floor to be dealt with in this convention. So they did. They set it up for the next day, which was Wednesday at 3:05 p.m. And there was a discussion back and forth about it. And Jeff Eorge, who is the president of the executive committee, he's been there in that position for, I think, just over a year now. He got up and he was against the motion because not that he disagreed that only men can be pastors, but he was concerned with lawsuits. The Credentials Committee. The Credentials Committee, by the way, there's committees everywhere. They're the ones who determine if a church should be in cooperation with Southern Baptists. They would recommend, hey, we need to remove this church, like Saddleback, remove them. I think a couple of years ago, for ordaining women. And so they would be the ones who would be saying, hey, we need to remove this church for whatever reason. And so Jeff Eorge talked about how the Credentials Committee already has a lawsuit against them. And he says, if we do this, and it's going to make lawsuits against them easier, which I think is garbage. I think it's trash. I mean, it's not like you're defaming somebody. That's what it was about, defamation. It's not like you're defaming somebody by coming to the floor of the convention saying so-and-so church has a female pastor. It's probably on their website. So I just think it was crazy. There's some reason that they don't want this here. So anyway, this ended up going to a vote, and the vote requires, a constitutional amendment requires a 2/3 vote 2 years in a row, which is 67%. And last year it got defeated. 2 years ago it passed. And last year, which would have been the first year, it was the law amendment at that point. It got defeated narrowly. This year, as it was brought up for the first of the 2 years, it was also defeated. It got over 60%, but it needed 67% in order to pass. So I assume someone next year is going to bring up the same thing, and they should. And hopefully we'll get 2 years to put this actually in the Constitution. Which is what might cause a lot of churches to leave. It might cause a lot of churches to be kicked out, but fine, because we're supposed to be believing the Bible. So if they leave, okay. All right, so that was the first one, that only males can be pastors. The second one deals with the ERLC. Now, the ERLC, if you're not familiar with it, is the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. It's the public policy arm of the SBC. It's what is supposed to be lobbying government and pushing public policy thoughts of the SBC. There's been a lot of discussion about the ERLC in the last several years, being a little bit too woke. Russell Moore used to be the president of it, very problematic guy. He's now the editor, general editor, I believe, of Christianity Today. And he writes a lot of things that are I don't agree with them. Brent Leatherwood today is the leader of it. He's been taking a lot of heat. And so there was a motion to abolish the ERLC, and it came up last year too, but it was defeated. And so it came up again this year, and being an entity of the Southern Baptist Convention, it requires a majority vote 2 years in a row. Any entity of the SBC requires a majority vote 2 years in a row to abolish it. Well, this one came up and it had all the back and forth, and of course it didn't pass. And the whole point was not necessarily to abolish the ERLC, but the whole point is if we vote this year to remove the ERLC, they'll have one more year. And in that year, the leadership and the trustees of the ERLC it'll be kind of shock them into what they need to do. They're going to say, wait a minute, this place is about to be abolished. We need to fix something. That was the point of this whole thing. But it failed about 57 to 43%. So that's really interesting. If you get about 43% of the people that were there on the floor saying we need to be looking at abolishing it, I think that's a pretty big deal. So it's about 57 to 43% or so of the people that voted. Not everybody voted. There were 5,000 to 6,000, I think, people who voted in that one, and there were about 10,500 messengers there. So It's just interesting, but so that one didn't pass either. The third issue that I knew was going to be coming into the convention, and that was a really big deal, was financial transparency of the entities. The entities are the seminaries, the mission boards, things like that, a part of the Southern Baptist Convention. Primarily talking about the two missions organizations, which are the IMB, which is the International Mission Board, and NAMB, NAMB, the North American Mission Board. Those seem to be the ones that are at the head of this conversation, probably ERLC also. There's a push for 990 level transparency. In other words, just let us know some of the things that's going on. Like, for example, the salaries. What does the president of NAM and what does the president of IMB make? Well, what are their salaries? You can't find out. And the argument is, well, the trustees of the organizations know, and you vote on the trustees. By the way, the vote on the trustee is, here's a whole bunch of them. Let's just vote on this whole report together. It's not like we're individually voting on the trustees. So this was the argument. Hey, let's have transparency here. Let's find out just what's going on. And the Committee on the Order of Business ruled it out of order because the convention cannot direct the entity. I cannot direct entities. We can't tell them what to do specifically. We set them up, take them down, but can't go and say, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Or, man, they'll just be doing, you have thousands and thousands and thousands, technically could be millions of people telling entities what to do. It just doesn't work that way. So the Committee on the Order of Business ruled that one as out of order. However, the man who made it, whose name was Mark Coppinger, when they ruled it out of order, he got up and he made an urgent request to bring it to the floor to do away with those standing rules about that being out of order, that we can't direct an entity, and actually to bring it. So the body that was there actually voted on that and about bringing it back. And so we discussed it. And Jeffy Orge, the president of the executive committee, of course, spoke against the amendment, claiming that we don't need that level of transparency. We should be able to trust our trustees, and it failed. So we don't have that level of transparency. The whole discussion is, well, we have the trustees and we're supposed to trust the trustees, but there's been a lot of questions about that in the last several years. Let us know what's going on in these entities. And I tend to agree with that. I think that we should know. Most of the people in most churches know what their pastors make. So we're sending all this money to the Southern Baptist Convention. Well, tell us, what kind of salary are these people pulling? There's been some speculations that it's in hundreds and hundreds of thousands, close to $1 million. We don't know, but there's been speculation. They say, no, it's not that much. Well, we would like to know. And I wouldn't be surprised if that one comes up again too, probably next year. So those are the three main things, but there are a couple other things. One is dealing with the lawsuits. Obviously, an organization as big as the SBC is going to have a lot of lawsuits, and they're expensive. And besides not always knowing who the lawyers are and how much they're getting paid, somebody tried to find that out. Couldn't really find that out. The executive committee, which runs the convention through the year, well, the convention is not meeting, they came up with it's called the Business Financial Plan. They wanted to update that this year. And included in that was a $3 million priority allocation from cooperative program funds because they have legal issues. They're also planning to sell the building in Nashville, the Southern Baptist building there, to help pay for these things. But they wanted $3 million from the cooperative program, missions giving for churches, to go to help pay these off. And eventually the whole budget and everything passed and all that just kind of went through. I don't like the idea of using these cooperative programs funds to pay for legal issues. What legal issues? The legal issues, a lot of it come from the sexual abuse, what many would call the sexual abuse scandals. But just a few months ago, there was a whole investigation. They found out this whole sexual abuse thing was basically nothing. There are always some situations there were some sexual abuse in these churches, but it wasn't. A couple of years ago, you would think that every single Baptist church is harboring sexual abuse predators. It just simply was not the case. It's virtue signaling, saying, boy, this is the big thing, the whole Me Too movement. We got to buy into this and we got to search all this out. But there were some things in the past, and especially dealing with someone like Johnny Hunt, and there's a lot of lawsuits. Johnny Hunt and you can search on him if you want to. He is suing the SBC over defamation, all that, even though he admitted that things that he did were wrong. It's just crazy. But now the SBC has to pay for this. And so $3 million of the cooperative funds are going to be used to help pay for that. They're trying to sell their building, all these things. So you may or may not agree with everything that was going on with the sexual abuse issues that were going on. But a few years ago, they were trying to, there was a website that was supposed to come up. And what people were trying to do was trying to make the Southern Baptist Convention come in and tell churches how to deal with sexual abuse. People who are pushing that, many of them in the SBC, I don't understand why, because SBC doesn't control what we do in the churches. And so this thing just kind of, people moved on to other things, is my opinion. But they had a misunderstanding of the polity of the SBC. The SBC cannot say, you need to do this in your church. You need to have this, go to this website. You need to report this. You need that. That is not within the SBC's role. That is not their job. They have no control over that. And so I think people we're walking this legal line of saying that, and then making the government think that our churches are under the SBC. What we do has nothing to do with the SBC. They cannot come in and tell us anything. So if you're an independent Baptist, many times you've heard the wrong thing. I heard a lot of it too before I actually got involved in a Southern Baptist church. It's all bad and this, and they control things. They don't control things. SBC cannot control anything we do. But the people who are all up in arms about the sexual abuse, and every time that shows up is bad, obviously, but it wasn't as big as they said. But these people who are all about it were trying to tell churches what to do. Well, they can't do it. That's not SBC. That's not our rules. You can't do it. So anyway, all this going on caused a lot of lawsuits and this and that. So there are some financial problems, of course, because of that. So I think that's it. That's all I want to share with you from right now. So much more that's always happening, but those were the main things. So we'll see what happens next year when we go back to the convention. Next year, it's in Orlando. I like these warmer places. It's really nice. Anyway, I hope that's helpful to you if you're trying to understand what's going on in the SBCs today. And God bless.